right, welcome to today's episode of Around the Table, where we're going to dive into some real, unfiltered conversations about all aspects of life. These discussions are honest, transformative, and designed to inspire. We're so excited to have you with all of us today.
Yes.
Okay, so here it is. We are going to do a deep dive into 3 of our core foundational just truths and values that we all really have fought for decades of our lives.
Yes.
And one of them, and the first one we're going to talk about is honesty.
Yes.
But I want to share the other 3 with you.
Yes.
So
Yes.
honesty, transformational, transformative, and also being intentional. Like it's so important. I know in our last episode we talked a little bit about intentionality and friendships and doing things on purpose. And so that's one of the values that we are going to share about. But today, Jeff, will you share just a little bit, about why honesty in friendship, honesty with the Lord, with ourselves, with others is so important? You want to kick off the conversation?
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, when we were coming together to figure out what do we want to talk about, what do we want the show to be about, you know, we all realized almost immediately that honesty is number one, right? We want to come and have real, honest conversations. I think it's super easy, especially in the world of Instagram, where everybody's looking at each other's highlight reel. You know, we wanted to provide a space where we are getting real and even raw with some of life's issues and the topics that are on our heart. So honesty is definitely one of our core values. I think it's like, you know, Jesus is the truth, right? And so we're not going to pretend, right? We don't pretend with each other, and we're not going to pretend with our audience. I think that's why this one is so important, because we have to start with the truth, and we have to start with being real, right?
So good. Yeah.
That's so true.
I absolutely love that. One of my favorite scriptures is John 8:32, and it's, you will know the truth and the truth will set you free. And I think that's one of those things that we do. Like, we all love the Lord with all of our heart, and we know that He is the ultimate truth, and His truth brings freedom in our lives.
Absolutely.
And like, that is the ultimate goal, I think, for any of us and for the people that we love, and even you as our audience. Like, we want you to understand the transformational power of the Lord, but also that truth really does bring freedom.
Yes.
Right.
Robin, what about you?
Honesty. I think one of the hardest things in friendship is just being honest. I think just growing into that place of, you know what, I'm always going to tell you the truth. I'm never going to be rude. I'm not a reactor. I'm more of a responder. But I think having those hard, honest conversations with each other so that hurt doesn't fester, so that our own narrative doesn't fester, so that, you know, truth can be found in the middle often. You know, I just experienced something. Actually, Joanne and we just experienced something where we had a misunderstanding-ish. It wasn't really between the two of us, but we had that conversation of just like, this is what I heard, and this is what was said. And so it's just that finding that middle space usually, because if you value the friendship, and if you value the person in your life, you're not afraid to go there and to have that conversation. Obviously, there's people in our lives that we can't, and that's okay. But those people in our life that we're fighting for, that we're in it to win it, right? It's okay to have those honest conversations.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, you said a really important word there, narrative, right? And if we're not having the conversation, if we're not bringing our hearts to our friend and say, hey, this is what I was experiencing, in our marriage or in anything, we create narratives in our head, right? And how many times, I know for me, I've created a false narrative in my head because I wasn't in possession of all the facts. And so that's why honesty, and it really starts with each one of us here. Right? Were you going to say something, Jo?
Or no, I mean, not necessarily, but I love the topic because, I think it is a core value for all of us, and we've talked about this a lot. And I think, you know, because of our relationship with the Lord and knowing how important it is to be honest with our connection and relationship with Him, honest
in ourselves, like being honest with about our lives and who we are and the things really going on, and that bleeds into relationships, right?
Yeah.
So it's all connected, but the heart of it is that, you know, honesty is crucial for healthy relationships, for health in our life, because we can all suppress the truth, right? We can
Yes.
present whatever we want to present to other people, but if we're not being honest with the Lord, with ourselves, with others, we're not fully living an intentional life and a transformative life, right? That's what, again, part of our other values that we are about. So I love that, because I'm like with Jeff, you know, if I have a situation and I'm not going and having, I call it a brave conversation, but if I'm not going and having that conversation to get clarity about maybe something that I'm reading a wrong way, whether it's in a relationship or with my husband or a child, then I'm actually missing some of the core values pieces of that truth.
Yes.
And until I know that, I'm actually building a little bit of a narrative or case against a situation or a person. And we know, like, the way the enemy works is like, and the way our brains work is that whatever we believe to be true, we will find evidence for it.
Yes.
So if I
say that again, girl.
well, whatever we believe to be true,
It's true.
we will find evidence
It's so
for it. That's
true.
why we're going to talk about beliefs and why they matter.
Yeah.
But that is crucial in all of this conversation of honesty, because if I'm believing a lie, right, then I'm in it and I'm believing it. I'm in deception, but then I'm also, the enemy's like, awesome, I will give you evidence for that lie, because I want you to stay here and get stuck in this narrative and this presumption you have. Because ultimately it's about, those lead to disconnection, right? It leads to relational hurt and wounding. And that's really what the enemy loves to do in relationships and in our relationships that we have with, you know, all the aspects of our life, business or family, you know, friends, you know, and again, children, adulting children, you know, all those things, it matters to have honesty.
Yeah. I think too, just like that piece about having the honest conversation, the opposite of that is having the conversation for the other person.
Yes.
I learned that really early on with my husband, is that I can't have his conversation for him. It's not fair to the other person.
Right.
You know, it brings, like you said, Joanne, disconnection.
Yes.
It actually, that's where I think deception can enter in.
Absolutely.
You know, and it really does break relationships. You know, it's really important to be brave and to have those hard conversations. And they don't always have to be hard.
Right. No.
They can be, it doesn't have to be like, you know, I'm coming for you. It doesn't have to be that. It literally doesn't. It's just, hey, you know what? I heard this wrong. I feel like I might have heard this wrong. And
and that's something I've talked about for years, like with our kids, or even, you know, with communities, or, you know, whatever, people that I do life with. It's the conversation is actually to lead to greater connection and depth of understanding, relationship, clarity. It brings us closer when done the right way. Unfortunately, you know, that's another topic, but people can go into difficult conversations, guns loaded, or on the defense, and the other person isn't handling that well, and it shuts everybody down.
Right.
But when it's done well, it actually leads to connection, and we will always have conflict. Is normal. Like having conflict and misunderstandings, that's just a natural part of life and living. And that's where I'm always telling my kids, like, this is normal. Like, this isn't a hard thing. This isn't a bad thing. It's just normal. So we get to have those conversations. That actually leads to a greater depth of connection.
That's so good. I was just thinking about a time where, you know, I was like early on in marriage, I was running after like the dreams of my heart. Even then, it's like, you have some things in your heart that you know that are in alignment with what God's called you to be and do, and all of those things. And so I had, Keith and we had talked, and I was like, I want to do this certain thing. And it was about going away for like 6-7 weeks and doing this mission school, you know, in the slums of this other country. And he was like, yes, like, I'm so for it. But what we learned through that process was he was not being completely honest. He was wanting to support the dreams of my heart. He was wanting to support God's dreams for my heart. But yet I was off in my timing. And so I still stepped in because he and the mentors were telling me, yes, go, go, go. But once I stepped into it and I was away from my family, because my kids were 4 and 6 at the time.
Wow.
Which was, you know, and we were senior pastoring at church.
That's bold.
So we had a lot of things going on. And, you know, here I am. I'm like, I'm young. I want to go and live my dreams for Jesus. You know? But it was really a trying time for us in our marriage because we like really weren't being completely 100% honest. And we worked through that and got on the other side of it. But now we've learned like that was a lesson in life, right? And it's like you make sure like we're in agreement with things and we move forward in agreement and the importance of agreement. I mean, Joe, what do you think? I mean, how is that for you? Like even thinking about you and the school board.
Oh my.
Like the disagreements that happen in that space, like.
Yeah, well, before I answer that, as you were talking, I was just thinking, you know, why is it that those that are the dearest to us, those that we love the most, sometimes are the ones we're most afraid of being honest with? Because why? Because we don't want them to reject us. We don't want to lose that person.
That's a whole other topic.
But I'm like, you know, why is that? Because because that person's valuable. And so you're nervous, but I have learned that when I come, even with my messy, like, wow, I don't even know where that came from, and I'm talking to the Lord about it, and like bringing the honest truth to a friend or to my husband, I find it's like, it's so much better after, right? Or even like a hard conversation, and the people that we love the most are probably the people that love us the most too. And so I've had conversations with friends like, this is scary to step into this, but after I've done it, I feel so much closer to that person. So I think I would want to encourage everyone to like, when you feel the most afraid, do it because you're going to get the most reward out of being honest. You know,
so good.
Okay, just really quickly, because the little pastor in me wants to say this about that comment, that like always have the conversation, but I always challenge people as well in that make sure you have a goal in mind and your heart is in the right place before you have the conversation. So if you're feeling heated, if you're feeling like I am coming guns loaded, or this is actually very triggering for me, or my emotions feel up here, you know, to give yourself some time.
Pause.
Take a time out for yourself, but then also make sure that your heart is in the right space before you launch into that conversation and and the truth you want to share, or the conversation you want to have around the, you know, whether it was a disagreement or misperception, but you come with a goal in mind. Like, my goal is connection. My goal is to like bring us closer and for us to know each other better. And I think that's something we all value. So I'm sorry to interrupt. But
No, that's so good.
I want people to go launching into conversation.
Just dive in.
Just go.
You know, that's so good. And circling back, you asked me, you know, like being on the school board. So then it's like you want to work on the honest conversations with the people you're closest to, and then those, you know, going out of the circle. When you get to something like being on the school board, this is interesting. It's like you want to be true to who, you know, why you're there. What's the truth? What are you going after? But like in my case, I also have to watch what I say, because I have enemies that want to twist and turn everything. So even in the professional world, it's like I find myself, and I'm sure you guys can relate to this, like I have to go back to the Lord, go, all right, who I am, tell me who I am again. Remind me who I am. Remind me why you called me to this. It's got to be the same with business.
It's the same, exact same way.
You're dealing with employees and having hard stuff with that. It's like, this is the truth. How do I word it? How do I not betray the truth, but just being mindful, because not everybody is your best friend.
Right.
And not everybody is your husband that's in covenant with you.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, but still holding to that, I am about the truth,
Yeah.
but I just have to navigate it in a different
Yeah,
situation.
I can totally see that too, Robin,
Yeah.
with you and business. Like, tell us a little bit about that. Like, being honest, being integrous in business. Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, I think one of the key components to hard conversations is understanding the culture that you're having the conversation with.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right, because not everyone is in the church.
Yeah.
Not everyone is a family member.
Right.
Not everyone is your parent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? Not everyone is your husband. And so it's understanding the culture that you're walking into. And obviously in the business world, it's an entirely different culture. And then there's that added layer if you're responsible for people.
Exactly.
Then you have to
Yeah.
shift that. Again, they're not your friend.
Right.
I mean, we're friendly and we are friends, but there's this element of professionalism that you have to maintain. But there's this understanding and discernment that we have to utilize that God gives us.
Yeah.
If we ask Him, He'll give it. And sometimes the hardest conversations I've ever had are within the church.
Absolutely.
I always say to you guys, like, it's easier for me to do business than it is to do ministry.
Yes.
Because ministry is like, I don't want to hurt. I have, this honor culture, this whole like eggshell thing that I feel I have to. I think a lot of us do. We feel like we have to walk that out. It's entirely different in the business world, and so I don't feel that intimidation. It's a different kind of intimidation,
Right.
But it's definitely you're not. I hold myself to the same standard
Right.
of integrity, but it's an entirely different animal.
Do you feel like the expectations in the church culture are different than those in the business culture for honesty?
100.
Yeah. And what does that look like?
Well,
you?
I think, so in the business world, like there's a lot of liars, right? I've experienced a lot of liars. Not currently in my life situation right now.
Right. Yeah.
But I think that there's this like standard in the church, in the church community there's this higher expectation of, how do I put it? It's like everything is spiritualized.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of just being raw and honest, which I just love with you guys, I can just, my friends, I can just be honest and I'm not afraid. But I have encountered this thing where it's like overly spiritualized, overly, well, I have to pray about this, or I can't talk to you because of this, or all this nonsense that we all have experienced,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
I mean, you forgive it and you move on and you just, you keep going.
Yes.
But yes, there is this standard of, you can't just have the real conversation,
Right.
and it doesn't mean you're not being spiritual.
Right.
It's actually like more powerful. Like God wants us to do that.
Yeah.
He cares about relationship more than he cares about the ministry.
Yes.
Yeah.
He
100%.
cares about the foundation of community and family more than he cares about the ministry.
Yes.
Like that's the bottom line.
Yeah.
It's
true.
the word says, if you can't love people in front of you, I'm paraphrasing, then how can you say you love me?
Right.
Right.
And so, yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the lessons that I learned out of going away for those 7 weeks and then coming home was, you know what? Actually, global reform starts at home.
Yes.
And your home relationships, your if you're married, your relationship with your spouse, with your kids, like that's
Absolutely.
first. I mean, God, absolutely first,
Yes.
but secondly, our family relationships are
Yeah,
priority, and then it comes all the other things that we're
Yes.
involved in. And so, yeah, I mean, I think too, like even in the business space, I mean, you have whatever mountain of influence. You have business, you have politics, you have, education, arts and
Yes.
entertainment, all the different ones. And they all kind of have those different things in place, right? Like
Yes.
expectations. But yet, whenever we pull it into the church space, we talk about family. And then I don't know if you guys have ever experienced it, but I've been in places where it hasn't felt like family.
Yeah.
Where they communicate family, but you're not family.
Right.
Like,
Yes.
they're just like, dee. Like, it's
Yeah,
just not,
check it off
sorry,
the
you're not a part of the
box.
family. You're not a part of
Yes.
the club. And then,
Yeah.
poop,
Yeah.
poo. It's like, just
Yeah.
it's weird,
Yeah.
But I think in business, there's a framework there.
there is
There's
structure. Yeah, the framework.
But maybe they don't communicate we're family. And so it's a little bit
Right.
easier. Like
Yeah,
disappointment doesn't hit as hard maybe in the other spheres of influence.
Yes.
Because like when we're in the church place, like
Yes.
we do, it's in our heart. It's like the connection. You want that.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's
Yeah.
just a different level of expectation, right? And there's like you said, knowing the culture. Like there's a culture in business. So you know that culture as you've been in this for 30
Yeah.
plus years of
Yeah.
business and being owners and having businesses and working for other people, like that culture and your expectation matches the culture
Yes.
is through your experience. And then you've got the Christian culture or the church culture, let's say, and that I think a lot of us come into with a level of expectation.
Yeah.
People should be a certain way or they should behave a certain way because of our own back to beliefs or how we're interpreting things. And so that can get rubbed really quickly
Yeah.
because
Funky.
everybody is very different. And,
Yeah.
and I think that's the thing that I found in my years of doing ministry and being in the church and out of the church in terms of like work, being on staff and not on staff and all the things is just that piece that, oh gosh, my heart is like, I wish they would have done that better and had that conversation because all of this could have been avoided.
Yeah.
And all of this fallout could have been avoided and all of this disappointment and just like even breakups could have been avoided, let's say,
Right.
call it that,
Yeah.
if there would have been the right conversations and if
Right.
people would have handled things a little differently. And not to say I know, I'm not an expert at
Of course
this,
not.
but
Yeah.
my heart is like seeing some of that. You're like, oh gosh, if only I wish,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think there is kind of that gets woven into the relational aspect of our lives.
Yeah.
Whether business, church, family, all the things.
Right.
But I think that's so, I love that you said that, like understanding and going in, understanding the culture
Yeah.
of who your audience is, who you're speaking to, who these people are in your relational
Yeah.
world and how important they are to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Business is different than a family member.
It's true.
Yeah.
But I also think too, like there's this, we as Christians believe that wherever we go, we transform the atmosphere.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, but I feel like there's this block where when we go into the boardroom, right? Or we go into the business, or you go in with your high level business people. Same thing with you, Joe. Like we go in and we shift the atmosphere.
Right.
But for some reason, when we step into those ministry culture places, there is an expectation that the atmosphere is already set. Right. And there does seem to be a little bit of conflict
Right.
within those
Yeah.
confines. So
Right.
I think it's both. There's like the
both
understanding the culture
Yeah.
and then the shifting the atmosphere. I think.
good.
Yeah.
No, that's so
there's
true.
I find it easier to walk into business settings and shifting the atmosphere
Absolutely.
Yeah.
versus I do genuinely feel this in the ministry space, like, okay, what am I supposed to be right now?
Yeah.
Am I Mama Robin? Am I a friend? Like, what am I? What am I here?
Right.
I find that it's a little bit more difficult to identify who I am in that space. It's interesting.
That
Yeah,
is
it is.
interesting. That's true.
Yeah, it is. It's the thing because we are all honoring, right? We honor the leadership. We honor the space. We honor all the things, and so it's an interesting thing.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Honesty is a big deal.
It is.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
deal.
even circling
Honesty is a
back
big
to, why do we want to have honest conversations? I think,
Yeah.
too, it's like, again, I think I said this at the beginning, but in the world of Instagram and highlight reels,
Yes.
we want you guys, our audience, to get the real us.
Yeah.
Like, we are
Yes.
messy. I'm messy. We're all messy. Like
Yeah.
we all have our things. We all have our experiences and all of that.
Yes.
And part of that is what makes, I think the Lord, smiles and thinks, oh, I love that about her, or whatever.
Right.
Chip, you're so funny.
Yes.
But again, just wanting to have a heart that is receiving, that will take a look at what's going on in here, no matter where I am, whatever's happening. Am I being honest with me?
Right.
Like this person is
myself.
experiencing me in this way. It can't always be them, right?
Yes.
It's like and I have this thing the Lord said to me a long time ago. Any relational issue that you walk into, you should just assume that you're at least 50% of the problem. And it's just a good way to kind of go, okay, I'm sure, I'm sure I'm at least 50% of the problem. How can I
absolutely
adjust or shift or whatever? So
and that's going in with the right heart into that conversation, not like I'm right.
It's a heart
It's like you
posture.
want a win-win situation in a conflict or in a brave conversation that you need to have. So you're doing that by saying, I'm 50% or could be 50% of this
At least.
issue or this problem, at least, or more.
Yeah.
And so that's the right posture,
Yeah.
And I love that.
I do too.
Yeah.
What I love about you guys is that, you're the kind of friends that, if we're getting ready to film and, you're not going to let me go through the intro, and make me notice that I have a big old thing in my tooth. I had that happen to me one time when I was getting ready to go up and minister. And I had just had lunch and didn't have time to go refresh all the things. And I had a big old piece of lettuce right in my front teeth. And I went and I gave somebody a word. And it was somebody that we would all know if I said their name right now. Somebody that we all highly esteem. And I felt the prompting to go up to them.
Oh my goodness.
And then afterwards, my friend goes, oh, by the way, I'm like, you saw me before I went up, and why didn't you say anything to me? So I appreciate
we will
that
always
you were
honest Heather, you can count on me to say, honey, Heather needs some floss. Get Heather some floss.
So good. So
good.
I have loved this conversation today. This is a good one.
Yes.
So there's so much to build on.
So good.
Honesty is that foundation to build on.
Absolutely.
For everything in life, the truth will bring freedom.
Yes.
And bring freedom in every area.
Yeah.
So good.
Yes. So good. All right. So next episode, we're going to be diving deeper into our values. So you're not going to want to miss out on what those are. Thank you again so much for joining us today on Around the Table. We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's topic. So be sure to drop a comment below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you never miss an episode. You can also connect with us on Instagram at aroundthetable_US to stay updated on our 6-week mentoring journey and summer gathering. We can't wait to connect with you either here online or in person. See you next time.